Oh, someone asked me something about the subject to, so those of you that are left are going to miss out on this. But I'm going to tell you anyway, just quickly. The beauty of the subject to, outside of you being the end owner and benefiting from it, you can actually do something else where you can turn around and on-sell it to someone else. So like, I like my situation, it's good. But what I could do is I put $22,000 down. I could find someone that maybe doesn't qualify for a loan, right? But they want to buy. So, we have undocumented migrants, right? They'd like to buy a house, but they can't get a loan. They can't show income if they work under the table. But typically they have good savings habits. So I could find someone like that and say, you know what, you give me 40 grand down or 30 grand down, so all my money's back out of the deal, right? And then I take that 30, 40 grand, whatever it is, so I'm done. I'm paying 2.75% interest. I can easily charge them 5 or 6%. And so I'm going to take the difference between the 2.5 that I pay, the 5 or 6 that they pay. So I've created an income stream for myself for the next whatever many years and got all my cash out of the deal. You think they're going to keep paying? Of course they're going to keep paying. And they're going to trash the house because guess what? It's their house. Good deal? So I can make money so many different ways. And this is the whole point about knowing these strategies. So anyway, that's someone was asking in the toilet, so I thought I'd share it with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciated what you said about the applicant screening.
Yeah.
How much do you charge your tenant or potential tenant for screening, and how much do you pay? I'm assuming you don't pass it all on to the applicant, or do you?
$35.
So do you do your own homework in terms of like magistrate records and things like that?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, because the cost of not doing so is so much higher.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had a tenant screening company.
No, we do. I mean, we'll pull national databases, but we have our property manager go down to the county and do all that stuff for us. Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, I came in a little bit late after the break, sorry. So I didn't hear the first question, and I wondered how you got the 2.75 interest rate, and was it because of having a large down payment in the beginning?
No, it's because the person I bought from was military, and they had a VA loan. And so because they were military, and I mean, the Springs is ripe for these sorts of deals. Military people get moved every 2-3 years, right? So they're always getting into property, they're trying to get out. Oftentimes they become accidental landlords. And that's partly what happened to this guy. He moved in, our neighbors told us afterwards that literally the weekend he moved in, his wife left him. Right, it's a sad situation. Then he got deployed to somewhere, and then for 2 years he left the house with his buddies, and like 5 people lived there. And so they weren't looking after the place, blah, blah, blah. So he was in a place where he had to move. So obviously you take advantage of a situation, not in a bad way, but you take advantage of a situation. It's like if I want to sell my car to a car dealer, they're not going to offer me market price. That's how they make their money. But I get the benefit from the convenience of just walking in, dropping off the keys, and see you later. And then they're going to fix it, they're going to deal with it, they're going to do that, and they're going to make the money in between, right? It's fair. There's nothing wrong with that. So that situation was a VA loan. But you got people that got into mortgages 5, 6, 7 years ago that are still on maybe 3%, 3.5%. Mortgage market now is closer to 5%, depending on your credit. So.
Hi. After graduating, I'm moving to another state. I was
Yeah.
there at spring break. I know rental prices are like here, they're really high.
Yeah.
So what does a person do when they're moving to another state and they don't have a down payment
Right.
to purchase a home?
Sure.
What
So-
advice do you have for that?
Yeah, so buying without a down payment is hard, but it's not impossible. It depends on the situation. There are times when I can see you getting a house without a down payment, okay? Your number one friend is connections and knowing people. So I would join those groups. So here's a situation where I could see that happening. Someone is about to lose their home. It's a foreclosure. They have zero ability to make the repayments. In fact, they might even be behind, but let's assume they're not. But they're done. They have to move. I could see a situation where you could take over their house and take over their repayments with no down payment at this point in time, with the promise to give them a cash amount in 6 months, a year, whatever it might be, whilst you're improving their credit and they don't get a foreclosure on their thing. Does that make sense? So those are very tight situations, but they do exist.
I didn't know that banks would let you take over somebody else's mortgage.
The bank doesn't know. As long as you're making the repayments, bank has no idea. So you just make the repayments ongoing. Now, the only thing with that is you've got to be careful because you want to take title to the home.
Right.
You don't want to just be paying someone else's thing.
Right.
So that's where you'd go through and you would close on that property. So this is kind of more nuanced, but basically you would close on that property and the title would move into your name and the loan would stay into their name. And then you could have an agreement with them that within, say, 3 years, you'd refinance out. as an example, while you build your cash flow. And even more so when you have a house that's quite dilapidated or old, if you were to agree to fix it during that process, you're actually increasing the value of the property. So it's better for you and better for them from a risk point of view. So there are ways. I mean, that's a very unique situation, but all I say is the more people you know, the more opportunities for these deals. If you get in there and say, hey, I'm prepared to do the work, I'm prepared to live in a less than stellar place. I heard of a guy once, this is genius, he was buying houses in Cleveland right after the recession, and he was picking up houses, like he was buying what they call tapes, which is basically like tape, lots of houses, like 200 houses from a bank that had foreclosed. He's getting them for like $2,000, like nothing. And this is the genius of it, right? He looked at repairing them, but repairing them would have cost him 20, 30, 40 grand a house. He was like, I'm not doing that. It's not worth it in these neighborhoods. So what he did is he put a sign in the front of the house, for sale by owner, $2,000 down, X amount per month for 10 years or whatever, right? And he found people that there's no way they'd qualify for a loan, that had $2,000 to put down, and they were handy. And so he basically sold them the house for exactly what he paid for it, right? And then those people moved in and fixed it over time themselves. It was great for him. He got his cash out and a cash flow stream along the way. And they got a house that they never would have qualified for or even thought to do it because no one else is offering that, right? All the houses on the MLS are 100 grand. So there's so many ways. That's why I love real estate. It's so creative. There's nothing you can't do. Make sense?
This is more of like a hypothetical question, I think. But like, say that you owned properties in a country with like a hyperinflation market. What would be like your strategy, or do you have any insights about like what you believe you would do about that?
Well, the thing about inflation is that it makes the value of your asset go up, in the sense of, well, here's the thing. Inflation can be really good if you have a lot of debt, right? If inflation goes through the roof, your debt actually basically disappears in some of these crazy countries because the debt is fixed, but the purchasing power of the money goes up, or goes down, but goes up in the sense of what $1 bought today, it'll buy less in the future. So if I've got to fix like a 30-year loan, this is why, like when I came here and I saw people get a mortgage, Australia doesn't do this. You can get a mortgage, like a 30-year loan, fixed loan for like 3%, 3.5%. Like why would you not just buy everything? Because inflation's running at 3%. So you basically get free money for the next 30 years. You have to be insane not to do that. It's like the best deal in the world. You guys don't know how good you got it. We have nothing like that. So in a heavy inflation environment, you want to be owning assets. You don't want to be sitting on cash because what your cash can purchase is the only place where that becomes difficult is exchange controls. So like a place like Zimbabwe, you can't get the money out unless it's like Zimbabwean whatever Zims or dollars or some crappy currency is not worth anything. You got to buy a loaf of bread with a wheelbarrow. So and that's if you get there by noon. Afternoon will be 2 wheelbarrows. So the challenge you have with those situations is you oftentimes, even though the property itself may be worth more, getting the money out, like saying to US dollars, can be challenging. So that's the other risk, is the currency control. All right.
How you get around on a subject to or changing title to the property when the bank called the loan?
Very good. See, I like when people stay because these are not the nod to God crowd. Of the not nod to God crowd. So yes, so that is always a risk. Okay, so every mortgage typically has what's called a due, again not Jews, DUE, a due on sale clause, which basically says that if you were to transfer title to the property, that the bank can call the loan due within 30 days. Okay, and so then you're basically forced to sell straight away. Okay, it's always a risk. When I spoke to Bill about it, because it was a question that I asked him, he said that out of the last, 1,000 transactions or something, he said that it's happened to him once. Now, could you be that once? Yes. Okay. But generally speaking, it doesn't happen. When it tends to happen more than anything is, A, if you do something stupid, but B, it's more so when the rates change, right? So let's say that market rates are 5, 6%, you got a loan at 2%, they're going to want to call it in so that they can make that spread and lend it out. But if you got a loan at 3% and the market's 4%, they don't want that money back because what are they going to do with it? If someone's paying consistently, right? So there's that. So number one, it's not in their interest. Firstly, they have to find out about it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, even if they find out about it, they have to want to do something about it. And most banks are not going to do anything about it because what's the point? They risk things, right? Because remember, they still have the loan. It's secured by the asset. If they sell the asset in a fire sale, they don't know the condition of the property. They could lose money. So if you're a bank and you want to be paid interest and you're getting regular payments over a long period of time, why would you want to stop that, right? It's good. So yes, it's a risk, absolutely. There's some really weird and wonderful ways that you can go to the next level, and this is kind of the stuff that we'd be talking about in the coaching group. But what you can do is if you close it in there's what the issue is for the bank with the due on sale clause is an issue of who owns it when you transfer it. So if you transfer it, say, from you to me, legally, that's what triggers that clause. But you're allowed to set up a trust for yourself, okay? And if you set up your own trust, they can't call that a transfer for the purposes of that clause. Now, you set up the trust, you transfer it to the trust. I then come and take over the trust from you because it's not recorded anywhere, no one knows it. The change of ownership is not clear. So there's always ways around it.
Right here.
Mind blown, right? But this is the stuff, right? It's great. I love it. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for providing all this information for us.
Yeah.
I guess my question too is regarding the subject to deals and the example that you gave
Yeah.
of your own house. Did you basically, because you said you purchased for $282, did you just added like $10,000 to whatever he still owned on that loan?
No. So what happened was I paid $282 in total. So when I went to the closing table, the way it was divided was I took over the loan, which was like $260. It was like $259 and change, but $260, right? The seller, the owner, got a check for $10,000. The wholesaler got a check for $12. $12, $10, $260. That was my payment. Does that make sense? Let's take 3 more questions, and then I'm going to fall asleep. Make them good ones. Please make sure you guys take a card from Kevin and Mike if you haven't. They're really good.
So this actually isn't a question. I just wanted to say thank you for doing this. I really
Welcome.
appreciate it. I just recently kind of getting in this area. I went to Billy Epperhart's Wealth Builder Conference. That was a huge blessing. So I'm kind of stepping into this area. This is my brother, and we're working on it together. And everything today was awesome. Thank you for being so transparent and honest and just giving your best. I just really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
2 more. If there's no more, that's fine, but 2 more. Yes.
So there was a Senate bill that was being discussed recently in Colorado for rent control. What do you do in instances where that happens?
Sell and buy somewhere else. I mean, that's something, again, it's something that I don't like. Generally speaking, it happens in more of the blue states than it does in the red states. That's why I don't particularly like buying in blue states for that reason. Look at where there's rent control. It's New York. They're looking at it in LA, San Francisco. Because what it is, again, is people are complaining rents are too high, and they think that the solution is to put rent control. Well, 2 things happen with rent control. Number one, the stock decreases because investors don't want to invest in it because they can't get a market return. So that naturally pushes up prices because you have more demand and less rentals. But the bigger thing that happens is what happens in New York, which is the offers that are under the table as opposed to the ones that are on the market. So the person will come in and say, I know it's $1,000 a month, rent control. I'm going to pay you $1,000 that way, and I'm going to pay you $1,000 that way. And the real low-income people, the ones that suffer, they never see it. So they don't benefit from it. Government programs suck. That's the reason why they don't work. You know? But it gets votes, and the reality is the vote of the person that doesn't understand this stuff is worth exactly the same as the vote of the person that does. And so there's more of those than there are these, and so they're going to pander to that group because they're not here to do what's best for the country, they're here to do what's best for them. Okay, 1 more question. Make it a good one.
Oh, there's 2 now.
Oh, 2. All right, 2. That's it. We're done. 2 more.
Thanks a million, Rudy, for all
Yeah.
of this. Have you done any rent-to-own homes? And especially since it's going to be a while until Andrew sets up student housing here for Karis. A lot of the rents are per room are very highly priced here in the Woodland Park area.
Yeah.
Since some of us are going to be here for at least 2 or more years,
Yeah.
like myself, I would prefer to purchase a rent-to-own home and then use that as an investment property when moving back to Washington State or wherever the Lord sends me.
Okay.
So do you have any recommendations, or have you done any rent-to-own homes in this area?
My recommendation is don't.
And why?
Okay, so rent to own is great when you're doing it. It's not great when you're on the buying end, typically, okay? Like, I got a deal. I was going to, again, I've run out of time. I'm sorry. Thank you guys for being so patient, especially the AVL guys and the security guys. Man, you guys are a blessing. The reality is with rent to own, so there was a deal that I saw the other day. It was an owner finance deal, $45,000 if you buy it cash, $60,000 if you buy it with owner finance. Right? That $15,000 is what that person's making to sell it to you. Now, it might still be a good deal over the long term for someone. So you have to assess what the real value is versus what you're paying. But there's two reasons I don't like that scenario, and this is not, I'm just telling you my opinion. Okay? Number one, I don't like it because typically you pay more. Number two, I don't like it because the reason that you are buying is because you perceive that you're losing that rent money. But see, the thing with rent to own is you're going to be very limited in what you can buy. Right? Because not everyone's going to do rent to own, it's going to be limited. So oftentimes you'll buy a lower quality asset that's not going to be as good long term just because you're buying it on terms that you might be comfortable with at the moment. And so it can actually not be as good a deal in the long term. Obviously, all things being equal, right? Like you could find the stellar one that's awesome, but I'm just saying, oftentimes people will go looking for that. It's like when you buy stuff on payments. It's like you go to the car dealer and they ask you, how much can you afford, right? They ask you that because they want to see what's the closest they can get to that figure and hopefully another 10 or 15% over because they know that that's the real number. And so that's the same thing with rent to own. It's like, well, I would never really buy this property, but because I can get it on payments, and that's the reason I haven't bought a lot of the other subject twos that I've seen since I bought my house. Because I liked this house and I wanted to live in it because it suited me. But I saw other houses that were subject to, they were great deals. But, well, when I say they were great deals, they were great terms, but the house sucked. It was overpriced, it was damaged, it was not in a good area, and it's not an asset that I would have bought anyway. And so I kind of use the same strategy that I use when I buy clothes, when I buy houses, is would I buy this if it wasn't on sale? And if I would buy it if it wasn't on sale, then I'll buy it on sale. Otherwise, I got a closet full of things that I bought because they were on sale. Just to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you for taking the last question here.
Yeah.
I will try and make it the best I can. So yeah, thank you again for doing all of this. And
Yeah.
I wanted to know, you had shared your story about how you made the mistake of getting too much in debt with the interest and everything. As a first-time home buyer trying to figure it all out, do you have any like quick tidbits to avoid that whole process, or is the whole programs for first-time home buyers sufficient enough to not get into that situation that you were in, and like how did that situation even happen?
Well,
to you?
my situation was a bit different because what ended up happening was, you make plans and then they don't work out. So we'd we'd had our own kind of investment properties, and then we bought a piece of land which we were going to build 3 townhomes on. Well, that project was supposed to be like 6 months. When we bought it with what's called approved plans and permits, which means that the day you close, you can basically dig into the ground and build. Well, turns out that the people that did the plans, the previous developer that did the project, or the setup, if you will, didn't pay the designer for the last payment. And so when we closed, we had the plans, but they weren't fully executed. So when we went to the designer, they said, well, we'll give you the plans, but we haven't been paid, so you're going to pay us 20 grand. And we're like, well, we're not doing that. We didn't find out. The people who did our closing didn't know, right? This is, again, this is the experience stuff. And so we ended up having then to redraw the plans. That took like 6 months. And then the builder that we used was crap. And so it took them like 2 years and spent 30% more than what we should. So we were thinking, bang, quick in, quick out. We'd done all our homework, and it just didn't work out that way. And we spent more. So we had some decisions that kind of flowed on from there. And so because we're in the middle of the project, I mean, we still make good money on all that stuff, but we did get into a crunch. We ran out of cash, and so we had to borrow to pay the interest because I couldn't make the repayments. We were supposed to have already sold the house and pocketed the money well before we got into the situation. And that's why when I say to people, don't get in over your head, it's because I have. And so, yeah. With regards to first home buyers, I'll tell you the biggest mistake the first home buyers make is that they buy with their heart and not their head, because they want this house when they really should be buying this house, right? So outside of buying versus renting, when we talk about buying, everyone wants to buy their forever home. There's no such thing, okay? And even if there is, it's not your first one. And that's where most people, they mess this up. They go and buy their forever home, they buy their 2 cars, and they take their vacation, and now they're in debt for the next 30 years. Enjoy, you know? So I would say buy something that is manageable for you, that has some upside potential. If you can add some value, buy something that's, even in bad condition, within reason, fix it up, while you live in it, paint it, you'll create value. right? So even the money that you spend during that time, man, you'll save it versus renting, even if for no other reason that you've created value, increased the value of that property, live in it a few years, and then don't sell it. If you buy, especially if you buy as an investment, like it's a good investment property, don't sell it. Build some equity in it, take that equity out, and then you can buy your own home. Or you can buy another rental or whatever. And you do that 3 or 4 times over, and then, you know, when it comes to buying your forever home, then you're good. You know, so it's just patience. Most people don't have it. That's a good question.
Thank you so much. That was good.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you waiting. And be blessed. Have a great day.